we can achieve education for all. The future of Africa lies in its youth. Let's ensure they have the education they deserve. Visit our website to learn more and be part of this transformative journey. And a continent rich with potential and promise. Education is the key to unlocking Africa's future. Yet, many face significant barriers such as lack of resources, infrastructure, and support. But change is on the horizon. Welcome to NESA Africa Nigeria 2024 Award, an initiative of Santos Creations Educational Foundation SCEF and EduAid Africa. The New Education Standard Award NESA is dedicated to recognizing and fostering educational excellence across Africa. NESA acknowledges the incredible work of stakeholders across Nigeria. Their contributions are making a profound impact on communities. Hear from those who have directly benefited, real stories, real change. With EduAid Africa, we extend our reach, providing critical support where it's needed most. Join us in our mission. Support, volunteer, and make a difference. Together, we can achieve education for all. The future of Africa lies in its youth. Let's ensure they have the education they deserve. Visit our website to learn more and be part of this transformative journey.
Imagine a Nigeria where art and education converge to inspire a brighter future. Welcome to the NESA Africa Nigeria Awards, celebrating the transformative power of creative arts in education. Despite challenges, the creative arts sector holds immense potential to transform education, enrich cultural identity, and inspire innovation. Discover our award categories: Best Nollywood Production and Artist, Best Music Industry Contribution, Best Literature and Artworks, Visual Arts and Educational Impact, Performing Arts and Education Enrichment, Film and Media for Educational Advancement, Creative Advocacy and Educational Campaigns. This award celebrates cultural enrichment, inspires innovation, and fosters national pride. Awardees gain national recognition and collaboration opportunities. To nominate, visit www.nesaafricaawards.org/nominate. To cast your votes, visit www.nesaafricaawards.org/vote. Join us as we honor creativity. Imagine a Nigeria where art and education converge to inspire a brighter future. Welcome to the NESA Africa Nigeria Awards, celebrating the transformative power of creative arts in education. Despite challenges, the creative arts sector holds immense potential to transform education, enrich cultural identity, and inspire innovation. Discover our award categories: Best Nollywood Production and Artist, Best Music Industry Contribution, Best Literature and Artworks, Visual Arts and Educational Impact, Performing Arts and Education Enrichment, Film and Media for Educational Advancement, Creative Advocacy and Educational Campaigns.
potential and promise. Education is the key to unlocking Africa's future. Yet, many face significant barriers such as lack of resources, infrastructure, and support. But change is on the horizon. Welcome to NESA Africa Nigeria 2024 Award, an initiative of Santos Creations Educational Foundation SCEF and EduAid Africa. The New Education Standard Award NESA is dedicated to recognizing and fostering educational excellence across Africa. NESA acknowledges the incredible work of stakeholders across Nigeria. Their contributions are making a profound impact on communities. Hear from those who have directly benefited, real stories, real change. With EduAid Africa, we extend our reach, providing critical support where it's needed most. Join us in our mission. Support, volunteer, and make a difference. Together, we can achieve education for all. The future of Africa lies in its youth. Let's ensure they have the education they deserve. Visit our website to learn more and be part of this transformative journey. In a continent rich with potential and promise, education is the key to unlocking Africa's future. Yet, many face significant barriers such as lack of resources, infrastructure, and support. But change is on the horizon. Welcome to NESA Africa Nigeria 2024 Award, an initiative of Santos Creations Educational Foundation SCEF and EduAid Africa. The New Education Standard Award NESA is dedicated to recognizing and fostering educational excellence across Africa. NESA acknowledges the incredible work of stakeholders across Nigeria. Their contributions are making a profound impact on communities. Hear from those who have directly benefited, real stories, real change. With EduAid Africa, we extend our reach, providing critical support where it's needed most. Join us in our mission. Support, volunteer, and make a difference. Together, we can achieve education for all. The future of Africa lies in its youth. Let's ensure they have the education they deserve. Visit our website to learn more and be part of this transformative journey.
Millions rise each day with one dream: access to quality education. And in 2010, a movement began to honor those turning that dream into reality. Led by the vision of engineer Babashola Santos Vincent Aderabigbe, the Stakeholder Education Standard Award was born, not to celebrate the obvious, but to spotlight the unseen, the ones building, teaching, funding, and believing. From 2010 to 2013, the movement listened to teachers, NGOs, traditional leaders, innovators. What they all had in common was this: they were changing lives. By 2014, the movement grew and became the Nigeria Education Standard Award. In 2017, it evolved again to become a NESA, amplifying the call for reform. But the vision could not be contained within one nation. From 2020 to 2024, a continental shift occurred. What began in one country now called out to the entire continent and its diaspora. And so, NESA Africa was born. In 2025, the first NESA Africa Awards took place, not as a show, but as a statement. We see you. We honor you. We walk this journey together. Today, NESA Africa is a living network. Across 54 countries and African diaspora regions, local chapters are engaging communities, celebrating educators, and amplifying Africa's voice in global education. We are aligned with the global goals for education, equality, and collaboration. We walk in rhythm with Africa Agenda 2063's call for a people-driven, educated continent. You too can be part of this legacy. Join your NESA Africa local chapter from your country of residence or your country of origin. Become a yearly ambassador. Be the voice of transformation in your community. This is not just an award. It's not just a platform. This is a movement. This is NESA Africa.
Join us as we honor the trailblazing NGOs transforming education in Nigeria. Welcome to the NESA Africa Nigeria Awards, the overall best NGO contribution to achieving education for all in Nigeria. Highlights: NGOs making a profound impact on education through innovation, dedication, and action. Despite socioeconomic challenges and limited resources, NGOs are stepping up to bridge educational gaps and empower the next generation. Explore the categories celebrating excellence in NGO-driven educational initiatives. Recognizing NGOs providing education to marginalized communities and improving access for out-of-school children. Honoring NGOs enhancing education quality through teacher training, curriculum development, and resource provision. Celebrating NGOs leveraging technology and unique methods to address educational challenges and promote learning. Winners receive national recognition, enhanced visibility, and opportunities for collaboration and funding. This award encourages best practices, fosters innovation, and drives progress towards educational excellence across Nigeria and Africa. Nominate the NGOs making a difference. Visit www.nesa.africa/nominate to submit your nominations. Your vote matters. Help us honor outstanding NGO contributions to education. Vote now at www.nesa.africa/
Millions rise each day with one dream: access to quality education. And in 2010, a movement began to honor those turning that dream into reality. Led by the vision of engineer Babashola Santos Vincent Aderabigbe, the Stakeholder Education Standard Award was born, not to celebrate the obvious, but to spotlight the unseen, the ones building, teaching, funding, and believing. From 2010 to 2013, the movement listened to teachers, NGOs, traditional leaders, innovators. What they all had in common was this: they were changing lives. By 2014, the movement grew and became the Nigeria Education Standard Award. In 2017, it evolved again to become a NESA, amplifying the call for reform. But the vision could not be contained within one nation. From 2020 to 2024, a continental shift occurred. What began in one country now called out to the entire continent and its diaspora. And so, NESA Africa was born. In 2025, the first NESA Africa Awards took place, not as a show, but as a statement. We see you. We honor you. We walk this journey together. Today, NESA Africa is a living network. Across 54 countries and African diaspora regions, local chapters are engaging communities, celebrating educators, and amplifying Africa's voice in global education. We are aligned with the global goals for education, equality, and collaboration.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to EduHead Africa, by Santos Creational Foundation and NESA Africa in collaboration with Sakefa Lagos. Today, we tackle bridging education inequality gap in Africa with practical ways of getting learners back to class and learning. I'm Hawa Halimi, standing in for your host, Ben Ogbeyiwi, and I will be your moderator for this important conversation. Today, we will engage experts and change makers who are working on real solutions to make education more inclusive and equitable. Across Africa, millions of children and young people still struggle to access quality education, from economic barrier and gender inequality to digital gaps and unfunded system. Education inequality remains one of the continent's biggest challenges. Education is often described as the great equalizer, a tool that opens doors and transforms lives and drives development. Yet, across Africa, education itself has become unequal, reinforcing the very divide it means to bridge. We have a lot of challenges due to this, and one of it is the unequal starting point. In many African countries, a child's chance of receiving quality education is determined not by the talent or ambition, but by where they are born, their gender, or their family's income level in the society. A child in an urban center may attend a well-equipped school with trained teachers, while another in a rural community may sit under a tree sharing a single textbook among five classmates. We also have the problem of access versus quality. Over the past 2 decades, Africa has made commendable progress in increasing school enrollment. However, access does not always mean learning. Millions of children attend schools, but live without basic literacy or numeracy skills. This gap between attending school and acquiring meaningful education is widening every day. We also have the problem of gender and socioeconomic gaps. Girls, children with disability, and those from poor households are excluded from education. Cultural norms, early marriage, gender-based violence, and economic hardship continue to keep many girls out of classrooms. Meanwhile, boys in poor or conflict-affected regions are often forced into child labor or violence instead of schooling. That is why today we will explore the realities, causes, and solutions from diverse perspectives, and most importantly, discuss how we can close these gaps for a better future. This evening, we are honored to have 2 keynote speakers and 4 and 6 panelists joining us today. Our keynote speakers have Bosade Ogidan, a senior program director at Tech for Nigeria. We also have Adeyinka Akinyede Ashaolu, the founder and executive director of Wise Network Foundation. Without much ado, let's begin with our keynote speaker. Our first speaker will be Bosede Ogidan. Bosede Ogidan is a visionary leader in education and social impact, dedicated to transforming learning outcomes and empowering communities. As a program director at Tech for Nigeria, she drives strategies, initiatives to improve foundational literacy and numeracy. She strengthens leadership development and advanced systemic change in education. In this role, she facilitates collaboration across multiple teams, optimize program strategies, and align resources to achieve organizational goals. She also serves as a liaison to program committee of board of directors and represents programmatic work to key external stakeholders. Beyond our work in education leadership, Bosede is a dynamic global voice, transcending borders with her advocacy. She's at the forefront of her impact-driven initiative, Stand for Brainchild. Period Talk with Bosede is a major program. Through this pioneering project, she raises awareness on sexual abuse, menstruational hygiene, and the importance of keeping the girl child in school. Let's welcome Ms. Abosede Ogidan as she speaks on bridging the education inequality gap in Africa, with emphasis on teachers' deployment to add to serve schools.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Good evening. We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. I think I just wanted to make a correction. So I work with Teach for Nigeria as a programs director. And I'm just going to be talking. I think I have about 20 to 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to talk about bridging education inequality in Nigeria. And permit me, am I allowed to share my screen? So I can briefly just share?
You can go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Right. Okay, please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is clear and we can
all
see.
Right, thank you so. All right, thank you so much. The topic that I've been given is bridging the education inequality gap in Africa, and I'm just going to briefly share with us, why this conversation matters. And thanks to Nessa for inviting me. Number one, whether we like it or not, education remains the most powerful tool for equity, right? Yet across Africa, millions of children are in school but not learning. And then we have some certain, millions of other children that are out of school. Inequality limits opportunity and national growth and national growth, right? So this is why this conversation is important, that we need to have this conversation and begin to chart a way forward on how we can, overcome some of these challenges before us. Every child, and I'm going to start with this, every child is born with an enormous potential. And where a child is born should never determine the quality of education such child receives. But in Africa, with what we have on ground now, where a child is born determines the type of or the quality of education that child receives. But that shouldn't be the case, right? But that is the reality before us. And I just wanted to share with you Africa's education inequality at a glance. When we look at sub-Saharan Africa, over 60 million children are out of school, which means that Africa accounts for over 70% of the world's total, showing the largest global education gap in the world. When we come to learning crisis, 85% of children cannot read or understand simple text by age 10. This reflects severe foundational learning challenges, and that is learning crisis. I want us to look at this holistically, from African perspective. I'm going to probably come down to Nigeria. When we look at teacher shortage, Africa needs 15 million more teachers. Currently now, we have inadequate teachers in our schools across Africa. When we look at wealth disparity, the richest children are 5 times more likely to finish secondary school, while poverty remains a key driver of exclusion for children from poor backgrounds. The digital divide. Only 25% of schools have internet access. A typical example is during the COVID-19 era, private schools were still able to carry on, with learning, but children from public schools from low-income communities, were excluded because they do not have internet facilities. They do not have access to all these resources that they need to learn during the COVID-19 era. And I think that COVID-19 era sort of opened our eyes to the disparity, to the divide that we have between the rich and the poor, and most especially these children. Nigeria's reality today. So let's look at, the reality of Nigeria today. I pick it up from Africa so that we can see what it's like. Now we're, tailoring it down to Nigeria's reality. Out of the 60 million out of school children in Africa, 20 million is from Nigeria, making up to 12.4% of the total number of out of school children in sub-Saharan Africa, right? 70% of school-age children are suffering from learning poverty at primary 6. So you meet a primary 6 girl or a boy that finished from a public primary school, attending a public primary school. According to data, according to statistics, they are unable to read and perform simple mathematics operation. 50% dropout of the school system before senior secondary 3. And currently now, and I know this is 2022 data, 42% of young people in Nigeria are unemployed. And when we look at the Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index, over 62% of Nigerians are poor. Now, when you look at all this data, it speaks to one thing. And like I said earlier, every child deserves access to quality education. No matter where a child is born, the quality of education for that child should not be determined by, you are from the rich or from the poor. Every child should have access to quality education because it's a powerful tool to change the world. And like I mentioned earlier, I work with Teach for Nigeria. I'm just going to be talking briefly, what are we doing to ensure that we are able to bridge this gap of inequality? Because whether we like it or not, this inequality is there for everyone to see. And that's why I started by sharing statistics of what is obtainable in Africa as a whole, and of course in Nigeria. And our pathway to change at Teach for Nigeria is, when we look at all those problems, all those issues, there are it's like a jigsaw puzzle, right? If you say you review the curriculum, it's not going to solve the entire learning poverty. If you say you're recruiting more teachers, it's not going to solve. It's not only going to solve the learning poverty. If you say you decide to upskill teachers, you decide to improve infrastructure within school, it's not only going to solve it. If you say you're improving foundational literacy and numeracy, but when you look at it holistically, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So every dot is needed. Everything is connected. And then it takes me to asking this question: what will it take for us to transform the systems that are holding our children back from reaching their potential? And what we need is, we require a dynamic and determined leadership. It requires a dynamic and determined leadership. And I'm not talking about, as president or as commissioner. Of course, we're going to come to that. But we need leaders in the classrooms who are going to be innovative, who are going to be leveraging dead spaces to bring quality education to these children. And that's one of the things we do at Teach for Nigeria. And this is like a call to action to each and every one of us on this call to say, what are you doing to improve or to bridge this gap of education inequality? Okay. For us, we know that we might not be able to solve everything, but what can we do to begin to solve the problems one after the other? It's by recruiting leaders into classrooms. So we look at the Nigeria unemployment problem. And we see that out of this, young graduates that are finishing universities, they are so inspired, ready to go into the workplace and give their best to the workforce. And so we recruit these young professionals across different, pathways, across different disciplines. We train them, we support them, and then we place them in low-income communities to begin to leverage their experiences while they were growing up, to begin to leverage the trainings they've received to teach, to lead, and to impact not only the schools, but the school community and the entire community where they are placed. So a child that is struggling to read and write, when these teachers or these fellows get into those communities, using their own experience, their lived experiences, they are able to come down to the level of the student to leverage, knowing that they have access to limited resources, how they we use these limited resources to teach and bring quality education to these children. And that would, just to briefly share how we are bridging this gap in Teach for Nigeria. And that would take me to, talking about foundational literacy and numeracy. And I think I've shared data about 70% of children, attending public primary school and low-cost private schools are, cannot read and perform simple mathematics operation. And just like we can see here, right, 70% of children in Nigeria, when you think deep, you realize there is a lot of numbers. I've had people say, I speak to secondary school children, they can't speak a word of English, they can't even, critically think and answer questions. Well, let's look at their foundational level when it comes to literacy and numeracy, right? And one of the things we've also tried to do to bridge this gap is we've looked at it as beyond also placing teachers in the schools. How can we support them in such a way that they are able to teach students at the right level so that those students can read at the right level and can learn at the right level? So a child might be in primary 5 and this child cannot read. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a child can be in primary 5 and might not be able to read and write. So what we do is to begin to teach that child at the level, because that level is not where the child is supposed to be. A primary 5 child should be able to read simple sentences in paragraphs. So we adopted the teaching at the right level model, where we now, we train teachers. We had master trainers, started and piloted with 50 teachers to train them, support them, and coach them so that they are able to reach 11,250 students. Right? And so this training is focused on how can they begin to teach students at the right level when it comes to literacy, when it comes to numeracy. And this is the model we are following. And I think that, as many people on this call, we can look at it and say, I want to adopt this so that I can begin to, in my own little corner, in my own little way, begin to bridge this gap of education inequality. Training, like I said earlier, we get master trainers that are trained by TAL, teaching at the right level in Africa. So currently, they've been able to train our master trainers, and our master trainers have been able to take 50 to 52 fellows, because we are looking at, let's even pilot this. What would this look like for us? And I'm going to be sharing the report of what that looks like with monthly content pedagogical knowledge refreshers. Teaching, it's an after-school program. So we dedicate 1 to 2 hours daily for level-wise group, of course, approved by the government and school heads. So that, a child who is in primary 5, who is still struggling after school, which is like a remedial class, you are able to bring the child up to speed to be able to read, starting from identifying letters, starting from 2-letter words, for math, starting from identifying numbers, starting with, addition, basic numeracy. And because we are in the Southwest here, we co-designed a bilingual material that is from informal to formal, because we also understand that you not knowing how to read English does not mean that you are illiterate. It just means that you probably might know how to read in another language. And for those in Southwest, Yoruba, for those in the North, maybe Hausa, from those in the East, Southeast, Igbo, and from those in the South, the languages varies, right? So we're able to co-design bilingual materials, which is the from local to formal language, right? Using phonics card with local imagery. And then one of the ways we are testing and evaluating this process, we adapted the ESA for Yoruba context. And baseline showed that 71% of primary 3 and primary 4 could not write sentences. But by the time we started this approach, midline shows that 45% were able to reach story level. 45%. Imagine, from 71% cannot even write sentences. Now at 45%, they can reach story level. And you might be thinking, oh, this process is going to be, it's going to be expensive. According to, the stats, It's one of the cost efficient approach. For teachers training per child, you use less than $1. For materials, you use like, for teachers to use, less than $10. For materials, $5. For coaching, of course, there is need for coaching, because these teachers that you have placed in this community, there is need for constant coaching. Understand that what they have been taught or what they've learned is what they are practicing in the different schools where they have been placed. And of course, assessment, because we need to assess so that we know what is the progress this children moving from one level to the other. And like I said, there are several approaches to how we can continue to bridge this inequality gap. And one of the things I'm supposed to also talk with is, how do you begin to track? What are the indicators that you need to track, right? Attendance and learner progression. You need to track student attendance rates and progression through the FLN skill. Begin to understand, okay, we started with this child at beginner's level. Where is this child now? Is he at intermediate or advanced? And of course, these are going to be measured via standardized assessment, teachers' evaluation, monitoring engagement, and skill development. Another way to, to track and to ascertain this FLN indicator is reading and numeracy skill level. Assess their reading skills, fluency, comprehension. Assess their numeracy skills, number recognition, basic operations, problem solving. And the truth is, if a child can get to understand these basic things, no matter where the child gets, you just continue to build on it, but there's already a foundational knowledge that this child already has. And for literacy, the last one, literacy and numeracy competencies, we measure fluency, correct words, phonetic awareness. We have, for math, for numeracy, we evaluate competence in solving word problems, understanding fractions, using concrete objects, representing numbers, aligning with the national FLN policy standard in Nigeria. And so I want you to look at our report. This is just a report. And me sharing this is to say that as we are working towards bridging this gap, as a participant in this training today, what can you do in your own maybe organization or in your own way to continue to bridge this gap? Like I said, and I've shared earlier on, there are so many issues, affecting our education system. But there is need for us to come together to continue to bridge this gap. This is just one of many ways, right? So when we started this pilot of FLN, we said we want to improve, foundational literacy and numeracy. When we did the assessment, when we evaluated primary 2, primary 3, and primary 4, we realized that over 40% were at beginner level. 40% means that beginner level identification of primary 3. We are at the level where they can identify numbers. But by the time we piloted this approach, the number reduced at midline. We have not done headline, by the way. The number reduced at midline. When you look at letter, at the baseline, 13% of them were at letter formation, right? By midline, the numbers increased. The same for word, be able to identify a word. The same for paragraph. And like I said, as we continue to grow, as we continue to improve on this process, we believe that this is going to, improve. The same for numeracy. If you can look at the beginner, identifying numbers, look at the percentage, primary 2, primary 3, primary 4. But by the time they got to 1 digit, 2 digits, 3 digits, so you can see the improvement that has happened between baseline and endline. And I'm just sharing this so that you would see that if every actor in the education system is ready to put hands together, we'll be able to solve this problem one after the other. And to crown it up, all these conversations, all these meetings, conferences we attend, this training, is so that one day every Nigerian child will have the opportunity to attain an excellent education. Every Nigerian child, whether you are from you're rich, or you are from a low-income communities and underserved community, every child deserves an excellent education. And I believe that with everyone on this call today, you'll begin to reflect on this and ask yourself, what can I do differently? to ensure that I reduce the number of out-of-school children, to ensure that the 70% of children not learning in school is reduced by the innovative approach I'm going to come up with. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share the stage with you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bose Ogida. I believe everyone have learned one thing or two, and the need for us to work together towards putting a stop to this problem. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we shall be taking the second keynote speaker.
Potential and promise. Education is the key to unlocking Africa's future. Yet, many face significant barriers such as lack of resources, infrastructure, and support. But change is on the horizon. Welcome to NESA Africa Nigeria 2024 Award, an initiative of Santos Creations Educational Foundation SCEF and EduAid Africa. The New Education Standard Award NESA is dedicated to recognizing and fostering educational excellence across Africa. NESA acknowledges the incredible work of stakeholders across Nigeria. Their contributions are making a profound impact on communities. Hear from those who have directly benefited, real stories, real change. With EduAid Africa, we extend our reach, providing critical support where it's needed most. Join us in our mission. Support, volunteer, and make a difference. Together, we can achieve education for all. The future of Africa lies in its youth. Let's ensure they have the education they deserve. Visit our website to learn more and be part of this transformative journey.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, it is a webinar designed on bridging the education inequality gap in Africa. And our first keynote speaker has spoken on the need for us to work towards ensuring that every child have access to quality education. And this, she said, we can only do if we all decide to work together towards making it a success. Over now to Adeyinka Akinyede Ashaolu, the founder and executive director of WISE Network Foundation. She'll also be doing justice to this topic. Adeyinka is the founder and executive director of WISE Network Foundation, where she oversees a passionate team that is on a mission to bridge the gap in life skills for youth and contributes to closing the gender inequality gap through practical empowerment initiatives. Our work as executive director at the WISE Network Foundation as lead consultant at Kalia Consult and chief executive officer at Fruitful Fields Global Limited has contributed to the Sustainable Development Goals 1, 2, 5, 8, and 17. Adeyinka is the founder and executive director of WISE Network Foundation, an NGO that is committed to equipping, enlightening, educating, and empowering youth and women with current and cutting-edge leadership, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship skills through tips and tools that help them attain their highest potential. Let's welcome Mrs. Ashaolu as she delves into the topic this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Good evening, ma'am.
First of all, let me apologize to everyone on this call that I have just experienced the technical glitch. My video is not coming on, but I do hope that the smile I have and my voice would somehow be able to make up for whatever it is that we have, that we can't project the video this evening. I would like to thank the organizers, first of all, and then I'd like to thank our moderator, Hawal, and everyone who is here, and most importantly, our my co-speaker. Thank you so very much. Please let me know if you all can hear me loud and clear.
We are hearing you
We
loud.
can hear you.
Thank you so very much,
Yes,
and thank you. Good evening, good day to you for all those who are joining outside of Africa or one other part of Africa. My name is Adenka, Executive Director for Wisington Foundation. I want to let me do a brief introduction for what we do at Wisington Foundation, which is our approach is to bridge the skills gap in education. And I like the introduction that my co-speaker has given, knowing fully well that we have it in this ticking for time. And so that provides a good foundation. And the note on which, thank you so very much, and the note on which she has also ended has provided a good way for us to skip a few slides and be able to move on. Thank you so much, Bosede. Very familiar with the great job that Teach for Nigeria does. So I'll quickly dive into it so we can look at it a bit more holistically or no, from another angle. So what is, she spoke about inequality. And like everyone else knows, I have video, and please permit me to, what do you call it now, would be able to share the slides. I want to get a bit distracted right now to do that. So we all know that when we say inequality, like rightly said, is something that is fair, that is just. And inequality in education goes beyond access. I love the fact that she's spoken about the access, and every single data and challenge of inequality in education in Nigeria that she has highlighted are true, from Taraba to Lagos, from different parts of Lagos, the dry parts, the wet parts, to northern Nigeria. From one reason or one project or the other, I've had, and my team, the opportunity to be able to see the extent of the inequality that a normal or an everyday Nigerian child or learner will go through in terms of what it is. So in terms of inequality, we say that it goes beyond access. And in order to be able to, so imagine that someone is 5 feet tall, another is 4 feet, another is 3 feet tall, and you give each person 1 feet tall of support, like a stool under. At the end of the day, you have given them the same kind of opportunity, but my question is, will they have the same kind of access to see, to view, to reach whatever height you want them to? Most likely not. What you have simply done is you have given them a pedestal to be able to push themselves up with the exact same opportunity to be able to assess the level that you want to. But what we have, I think the major point of inequality we currently have in Nigeria, and I bet to say in Africa, is the fact that the learners that we have do not have equal access, and so this comes to a case of equality and equity. Those are two different words. And so I want to look at it from a perspective equality and equity. So for example, I made an analogy and I said, someone is 5 feet tall, another person is 4 feet tall, another person is 3 feet tall. If you want them to be able to have a view of something that is 6 feet tall, by introducing 1 feet of support under their feet, what you have simply done is that you have given the same kind of opportunity to them. However, the only person who would be able to assess that thing that you want them to reach with their hands will be the person who is already 5 feet tall. This brings us to the point of equity. And that is where the balance in education that we want to, because the inequality that we currently experience in Nigeria, in Africa, in other parts of the world, but now we would leave it at home, is caused by various factors. Various factors that stem from life realities of mental, cultural perceptions, expectations of formal education. So the statistics that Osede has given to us is on formal education. Now, in terms of achieving or putting into consideration the fact that a learner faces or different learners face different life realities, from mental, like I mentioned, to cultural perceptions, to expectations of formal education, to upbringing, the way they were nurtured, the environment in which they were nurtured, the mental capacity that they currently carry because of those, and social realities. I'll give you an example. There is a certain neighborhood in Taraba that we had a project in there sometime, and the limitation that we have, and I know that the team at Teach for Nigeria see this a lot, and I know that the people who are educators on this call, all of us are educators in one way or the other, see this a lot. You find someone or an environment where there is little or no access to quality teachers simply because of the geographical location of where these learners or would-be learners are from or where they live. You then discover that if you are providing a fully educated or a fully equipped teacher for such an environment, and they do not have a comfortable place to be able to sit, it becomes a problem for them. Now, how many teachers are willing to go into an underserved in every sense of the word, not an underserved in Bariga? When you go to some places in corners of this country, Nigeria, you discover that there are levels to being an underserved or a low-income community, right? And so now it comes to a element of equity in terms of these various factors that I have noticed. Now, that also cuts across geography, like I mentioned, income levels, societal mindset, the nurture in the way they have been raised and the mindset that they carry, and their that mindset also shapes how they view education in itself. To bridge this gap, we discover that the kind of equity, in order to ensure that every child has equal, comprehensive kind of education, we must then look as various stakeholders to be able to address the challenges that each geographical location is experiencing, that each learner is experiencing, and whatever the teachers or the tools that they also access have. Now, we are in a technologically driven environment globally. If you find, how do you say that? I pick a statistics from this presentation, and it says, oh, so a child does not know how to read or write, basic literacy level. You can't even identify the letter R, not to talk of A, sorry, not to talk of pronouncing it as R, as it should be. Now, the question is, the same child who is about the same age in another place is talking about access or equality in terms of, let me even be able to identify my letters, my alphabets. Let me be able to speak a single word and spell the word access by myself. Meanwhile, another child is in another part of the same state or the same geographical location, and the kind of access that they want or that they need at that point is a case of having access to computer to be able to step up whatever it is that they have. Remember that they are the same age, they are the same level. However, the realities of the learning environment that they have varies. And this brings us to the point of equity. Now, there are various stakeholders here, and why we are calling on stakeholders to ensure that we can find funding, that we can to be able to provide tools and equip the teachers, also equipping the learners. It is important to look at various stakeholders, and that's why what EduAid is doing is quite important, bringing various stakeholders from educators to parents and guardians, to enthusiasts, and to funders, providers of funds to be able to provide this access to people, is to put it into practical to say, what kind of access to education, what kind of challenges are this so far what we have done is to look and group or equate every kind of child or every kind of learner to say that this is what we have. What I think what we should do going forward is providing a platform that would be able to ensure that learners' needs are categorized according to their actual needs in order to ensure equity and to be able to bridge the gap in education inequality in Nigeria. I'll give an example. I want to believe that Bosede and the team at Teach for Nigeria and some other people here would be. And this is why having a multi-stakeholder approach, which what EduAid is doing, is very beautiful. Bosede has spoken about the formal education, ensuring that children have access to classes. Now, equity for some is, I get to a point in my study, and this is something that we can see that plays out in China. It plays out a lot in India. I think they're trying to adopt a bit of that in Bangladesh as well. Now, why am I going that far to talk about this? Is because a bit of that was recently, a few years ago, adopted by the Lagos State government through the comprehensive school model. Why? Because the statistic, the feasibility study showed that after GSS3 education, you find students who do not come back to school. And so I'm not interested, or I don't think I have the capacity to be able to do molecular that is being taught in chemistry, in biology, in physics. Please, I'd like to know that I am still on the call and that everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. So we have this opportunity to be able to say, I was speaking about the model that the Lagos State government adopted a few years ago, to say the comprehensive school model. I'll say some children identify to say, my mental capacity would not be able to carry the rigors of going through history. I understand that these people probably already have basic identification, basically equipped with literacy, so they can identify, they can read, they can write, up to writing this point. And this also brings us to the point of learners understanding what their capacity is, even though we want to encourage them, or what their areas of interest is. Not because if they are encouraged in every way, they would not be able to do it. But now it comes to the point of interest. Now, that comprehensive school model in the last, and I speak here with some caution, has encountered a bit of some setback in terms of now, like what we aim to, not necessarily funding, but because a few people who are also policymakers or who are supposed to take the frontline burner in terms of implementation do not see the reason why that should be a push. Meanwhile, the comprehensive school model, by the way, I don't work for Lagos State government, I'm just a multi-area consultant and educationist. So now we find the model very interesting, that when children finish their junior WAEC, like they call it, or ECHE, they have the opportunity to enroll into a technical or vocational skill acquisition, meaning it's able to build on what it is that they have. And this is why I think that providing equity as an add-on to bridging the inequality gap in education would be able to provide a more robust approach to what we have in Nigeria and in Africa, because I know some of our colleagues on this call are also from out of Nigeria, but I dare say that we have very similar challenges in this terrain. So now, what do I think, or what do I suggest is the way forward, is to ensure that, first of all, we who are stakeholders up until now need to adopt a power of cooperation. What do I mean by that? Many times we see ourselves as competitors. Meanwhile, in the real sense of it, we are all gunning to achieve the same kind of objectives. And as such, we should see ourselves as people who complement each other. You find people in spaces, in NGOs, or running schools who think that if I do well in my school and I'm able to run the other person down, or if I'm able to run programs in a way that is competitive, we need to move away from that approach to make it complementary. I must be able to, what do you call it now, appreciate the teachers and those who are providing education in one way or positive, because the terrain, especially in very tough terrains, there are some terrains that are extremely very tough. I mentioned a case study of Taraba the time, and we had to take boats, people who were scared and who could not swim, because again, there was no life jacket other save for one on that boat. And we had a project to do. And so it became a case of, are we going to take the risk, or are we going to back off and see exactly what it is that happens at this point in time? So stakeholders in the education sector, we all need to be able to see ourselves as collaborators, as people who are providing services, opportunities that are complementing each other as opposed to competing with each other. So a way from how do we achieve this is to incorporate such that whatever opportunities, whatever interventions, whatever models we are bringing in, either as community leaders, as policymakers, as educators, as donor fund providers, we are able to balance between actual literacy of, actual teaching of subjects, and balance it out with skills in terms of education, such that at the end of the day, what we are trying to approach or achieve is ensure that there is a holistic, excellent education for learners across board. And why is this important? Because the skills that they acquire from cradle to college, or as creators of businesses, are to ensure that they can read, they can write, they can provide solutions, and they can also be able to contribute to community development from where they hail, and also economically to the economies in which they reflect. I hope that as what you call it now, as stakeholders, we can harness the potential of having a more inclusive, a more comprehensive, taking into approach all the other parts, from basic to tech-driven to skill acquisition, such that the intelligence, the talents, the skills, and the opportunities of learners can be properly harnessed to ensure that we have what we call holistic and excellent kind of education. And so these systems, these opportunities, these funds, and these models that we will be deploying as tools should be seen from the lens of complementing and not competing for whatever it is. So either we're investing in classrooms, we're investing to equip learners, we're investing to ensure that they can get access to a technologically driven classroom, or a building that is dignifying to make it interesting for them to see, and to be able to have the transformational mindsets that they need to learn with. It is important that as stakeholders, we see ourselves as collaborators, and to be able to build a future that provides, or today into a future that bridges and also provides a holistic kind of education for our learners. At Wise Network Foundation, we work with stakeholders to ensure that not only do they have access to education in terms of reading, writing, they can also be able to make contributions via skill acquisitions, either tech-enabled or those that are hands-on in terms of producing innovative products and services that serve the interests of the society from where they are. I want to thank you all very much for your time, and I hope I didn't go beyond that to have me this evening. Thank you so very much to the EduAid team and to everyone who's listening this evening. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ashaolu, for doing justice to the topic. You said it is not all about inequality. It should be about equity. You talk about assessing the situation of every learner and giving them the support each and every child needed to make them who we want them to be in future. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, our panelists are already set for the discussion.
From the Santos Creations Educational Foundation, this is EduAid Africa, funding education through partnerships. We turn ideas into action, scholarships, safer schools, teacher coaching, and jobs pathways. Your hosts, Uncle Ben and Hawa Alimi, with keynote insights from Ms. Bosede Ogidan and Mrs. Ashaolu. We're live now. Let's begin. From the Santos Creations Educational Foundation, this is EduAid Africa, funding education through partnerships. We turn ideas into action, scholarships, safer schools, teacher coaching, and jobs pathways. Your hosts, Uncle Ben and Hawa Alimi, with keynote insights from Ms. Bosede Ogidan and Mrs. Ashaolu. We're live now. Let's begin.
Welcome back. If you are just joining the discussion is on bridging education inequality gap in Africa. And this evening, we've had two keynote speakers who have done justice to the topic. And their major conclusion is the need for us, all stakeholders, to work together towards ensuring that we achieve the goal of every child having access to quality education. They said it's not all about equality. It should be about equity. Now, let's begin the panelist discussion. I will hear from both presenters on this issue. Now, let's go to our panelists. And this evening, we have a crop of professionals all over Africa who will be doing justice to this discussion this evening. In the house, we have Professor Wahid Musa, a multi-award winning, accredited and certified global leader, a diplomat, a speaker, educationist, project execution strategist, a tourism developmentalist, a sustainable human development analyst, humanity scientist, humanitarian, peace and human rights ambassador, a poet, an author, a community development advocate, event organizer, youth and children empowerment activist, a culturalist and an entrepreneur. I know it's on and on. And also with us this evening is Dr. Angela Harris. He is the founder and president of Blackwood Worldwide Institute of Change, headmistress of Humanity Intellectual Academy and College, founder the Rebirth of Black Nation, Queen Mother in Nigeria and Ghana, a visionary, educator, certified broadcaster, a prophet, and a global reformer. Our journey embodies divine purpose, academic excellence, and generational restoration. She carries what she calls the band-aid anointing, a sacred mantle to heal nations, restore broken systems, and rebuild the identity of God's people across the world. Also with us this evening is Alimi Abubakar A2. Dr. Alimi Abubakar A2 is a seasoned security and intelligence professional with over 2 decades of operational and strategic experience across various sectors of national security, protective operations, and intelligence coordination. Dr. Alimi holds a PhD in security and strategic studies, a master in peace studies and conflict resolution, and a postgraduate diploma in refugee and international humanitarian law. He is a passionate advocate for education and human capacity development. Dr. Halimi is a course facilitator with International Institute of Professional Security, IIPS, and a certified entrepreneur educator. He continually supports academic growth and intellectual development among young professionals and promotes capacity building, mentorship, and lifelong learning as vital tools for national development and peace building. Also in the house, we have Jeffa Ibodaru, an active member of SAKEFA, a researcher and education consultant with a strong academic and professional background in community development, social welfare, and continuing education. He is currently pursuing a PhD in adult education, community development, and social works, with research interests spanning social inclusion, education, and access to health and welfare services. He has extensive experience working with civil society organizations where he has contributed to programs development, advocacy, and policy dialogue on education and community empowerment. Also, part of our panelists this morning is a journalist by name Ishola Benga. He is a media professional of many years, currently a communication officer at the Kwara State Ministry of Communications. Also with us this evening is Gabriel Olufumi Olutoye. Gabriel Olufumi Olutoye is a seasoned development and management professional with over 15 years of progressive experience in project leadership, operations and management, human resources, and partnership development across humanitarian and development contexts in Nigeria. His expertise span strategic planning, HR management, procurement and compliance organizational system development, a stakeholder coordination, a result-driven leader. Gabriel is passionate about inclusive development, institutional strengthening, and human capital growth. You will agree with me that this evening our crops of professionals are from different fields, and they will be able to do justice to what we want them to do this morning. Now, let's start from our panelist, Professor Wahid Musa. Sir, listening to what our keynote speakers have to say on the issue of the need for equity and equality in education, taking a look at the issue of the girl child, how can we include girls and learners with disability into this fold without leakages of misuse of resources? You know, we are talking about bridging the educational gap in Africa. Are you there, sir? Dr. Abubakar. Dr. Alimi Abubakar A2. Dr. Alimi Abubakar A2, are you on?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I want to particularly appreciate EduAid Africa for this timely program. The theme, bridging the education inequality gap in Africa, is particularly germane given the number of out-of-school children and educationally disadvantaged children due to region, religion, and gender, as the case may be. Now, going to how you can include girls and learners with disability without leakage or misuse of resources. I want to say, without missing words here, that inclusive education in Africa cannot succeed without accountability at the grassroots level. If you look at, there's a UNESCO report or education monitoring report in 2024. And according to that report, over 32 million children in sub-Saharan Africa remain out of school. And nearly 1/3 of this number are girls. Similarly, children with disability are particularly, I think, about 2.5 times more likely to never attend school than their peers. The problem here is not just about access. The problem is about ensuring that the resources actually get to those who need them. And without wasting much of our time, I think one of the ways we can include girls and learners with disability will be going by one of the models that has worked effectively in Nigeria, particularly in Kano, the Kano Safe Learning Hub in northern Nigeria, where Mothers Association and disability advocates jointly verify beneficiary lists using community scorecards. In this situation, the participatory approach reduced fraud to a large extent and improved the program credibility, with attendance rates among vulnerable girls rising by 21% just within 6 months period. Also in Syria alone, the Save the Children Foundation introduced a peer verification system supported by photo IDs, and this expanded the scope of materials that got to the children that actually needed them. I think about 97% success story here. Now, beyond these specific tools, digital verification tools can also help minimize leakages. In Kenya, a QR coded voucher for school meals and SMS confirmation system that allowed parents to verify their children's inclusion led to a 45% reduction in resource diversion in Kenya. The key takeaway here is that inclusion need not necessarily be at the strategic level. It should be community owned. When beneficiaries, the parents, and the local disability group are involved in monitoring, then every cent invested on this project will produce measurable impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Halimi, for that wonderful insight. Mr. Gabriel Olufumi Olutoye, what is your take on this?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Edward Africa. Just like the previous speakers have spoken, we have come to this point that we should stop fooling ourselves about equality, but focusing on equity, essentially, because we can't develop the regions of Africa. For example, let's take Nigeria. We can't develop at the same pace. Our priorities, the regions prioritize different things. So the leadership of the political leaders, the social leaders have different priorities. So at this point, it makes it very difficult pursuing the same thing at the same rate, right? And provisions of these regions, the resources available at the disposals of the stakeholders varies. So That is why I am an advocate of equity and not equality. Albeit, there's this that has come to me that we have lost. We have conventional ways of bridging educational gap, precisely foundational issues. Those days growing up, there is a moonlighting play when someone in the neighborhood will be telling stories. Kids learn sitting around an elderly person who could teach them. And I think at some point this thing translated into a storytelling TV program, Tales by Moonlight.
Right.
Yes. Kids learn, so they learn things, social, like cultural, educational, but insecurity. Now, well, I could say insecurity could be one of the reasons why that might not be in place anymore. But yet it's because the society had not placed priority on what is essential. You understand? And now those days they will tell you one person gives birth to a child, but this community comes together to train the child. So at different times where our priorities, we shift our priorities on different things and we have not pay serious and critical attention to our words, we've lost it. So closing in on this gap, I will say we will first start from homes, not school. Every parent has a responsibility towards their words. Whether you are educated, most of our parents who sent us to school then were not educated. But yet, the best brains still came from those era, right? But now, there are a lot of distractions. There are a lot of distractions. And these things are a factor of community issues at large. From homes, community, then the broader society. Right? Parents are struggling to fend for their words, to fend for themselves, to pay bills. These are issues. These issues, I think, for me, I know that these issues will never be eroded. But how do we prioritize meeting our economic or livelihood needs, and yet still offer our kids the best within the ambit of the little resources that we have by offering quality education? But this must start from home. So I totally agree with the idea of equity and not equality. A few years ago, I led a team up north to establish public-private partnership for public and private schools in Kano, Jigawa, and Kaduna. And we conducted a social demographic survey for about 250,000 schools across those three states. And we could see the level of communal efforts that varies within, but we could also see what each communities and states prioritize. But you see, beyond talking, beyond the words that we say, beyond those things lies the intentions to really pursue and do the needful. Right? So the North and the South are not our power. They are not our power. Social beliefs, religious beliefs, just like when Doctor spoke, we've been divided along these lines. But yet, whatever it is that we have to make, put at the front bar.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Oh, we lost. Okay, maybe it's the network problem. But so far, it has been telling us the need for us to work towards making sure that our children are educated. And in doing this, it said it supports the idea of equity and not only working towards ensuring equality in children having access to quality education. Mrs. Ogida, what do you have to say on this particular issue? How can we include girls and learners with disability without leakages or misuse of resources?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. So can you take that again? I think I missed because of network. Thank you.
Okay, the question is, how can we include girls and learners with disabilities without leakages of misuse of resources? You know, now we're talking about ensuring equality and equity towards our children's learning in Africa. So the question is, how can we include girls and learners with disability without leakages or misuse of resources?
All right, thank you so much for that question. I think this is very profound because most times when we're talking about equity or we're talking about equality, we sort of put aside the part of children living with disabilities and specifically girls living with disabilities. How can we ensure that they're learning without abuse of resources? If I could get you right, the question. And I think it's an amazing question. But the first thing I'm going to say is, how are we even empowering teachers to be able to provide access to quality education to children living with disability, most especially girls? I know that currently with what we have with state government and federal government is inclusion of children living with disability in regular schools. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, in regular schools, so that we can, as we're talking about inclusion, we want to include them. I've been to a school of recent where children that are children that are visually impaired and cannot hear were in the same class with children that can hear and can see. And I was wondering there, how would the teacher be able to convey, the message or the teaching to them? And, they just find a way around them, like, but these teachers need to be trained. So the first thing is teachers training. How do we train teachers and empower them so that they are able to provide quality educations when it comes to children living with disability or girls living with disability? With that, how can we have tailored resources, provision of tailored resources? And I spoke earlier about the different resources that we had to come up with when it comes to FLN. And some of these resources, I'm happy to announce that they are, some of these activities in the resources that we have for FLN are activities that also include children living with disability. So creating, teachers training, creating resources with limited, that is not expensive, that is cost effective. Yeah, that's the word. That is cost effective, that teachers can leverage on to teach children living with disability. And there are so many resources, but we just need to work with these teachers to be able to train them on how to use these resources. For people in government and policies, it's also important that how are they looking at policies that guide children living with disability. Like I make mention of, doing inclusion and having children living with disability and normal other children. And then these teachers are not trained, right? A lot of schools are struggling. These teachers are struggling in this school. But for me, I think these two things, if you can even start with that, it sort of would help teachers to be able to pass on quality education to the students. I hope I've been able to answer the question.
Thank you very much, Ma. You talk about the need for us to train teachers so that they will be able to deliver, they will be able to attend to the students appropriately, especially those with any form of disability or who are special students. You also talk about the need for resources to be tailored to the right channel. Mrs. Ashaolu, what's your take on this? Mrs. Ashaolu, are you there? Moving on to another issue, which is about the role private sectors can play beyond writing checks. Now when we talk about equity and equality, bridging that educational gap in Africa, there's need for all sectors to come together and work. So beyond the private sectors just writing the check, what do you think what are the other roles that they need to play to ensure that things work as they should? Let's start from Mr. Gabriel Olufumi. Your take on this, sir?
Yes. Madam Moderator, ma.
Oh, you are back. Sorry.
In here, I found I was battling with unmuting myself.
Oh, sorry for that, ma'am.
Okay. The question is, how do we best address the issue of ensuring that girls and those with disability can access quality education?
Self-leakages of needs, yes.
Okay, so in addition to the responses from the panelists and my co-speaker, I would say that it is a case of, number one, ensuring that needs are grouped according to, what do you call it now? The needs are grouped appropriately. Now, I want to build on what Bosede said. I have deployed a financial education and entrepreneurship program in some schools, both in the North and in the Southwest. I want to refrain from calling schools because they are supposed to be inclusive schools. And in the first place, it is a big achievement for the schools to have, in the first place, have children or students, because this was a secondary school project, both junior and senior, to have included students who had special needs or peculiar needs, right? And now specifically, it was a case of those who had disability, who needed hearing support, right? Basically, and it was supposed to be inclusive schools. Now, the beautiful thing that was done was that for the school itself, the school has sign language interpreters. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. But using that as a case study to answer the question is, it would be more inclusive or more equitable and even help the teachers, either interpreters or ever, to be able to be more impactful, to have learners who have specific and similar needs put together. Imagine how easy it would have been for participation, one, and also for comprehension, if everyone in that class or were to have the same kind of peculiarities. I don't want to call it challenges. So if everyone in the class were people who needed interpretation or sign language interpretation, in this case, that helps us to provide equity. Now, it is impossible, even though it is very laudable to have interpreters in the class because it's an inclusive school, it is impossible for the pace of assimilation to be the same when you are teaching the same thing, right? And so that brings us to, I'll wrap up on the point to say, let needs be grouped accordingly such that we can be able to address issues head on and the impact will be felt home. Number two is something that has been said before, and I mentioned it, and I think Dr. Fumi, I hope that I'm correct, mentioned, no, I think it was our first panelist who mentioned a project
Dr.
about,
Halimi.
thank you very much. Dr. Halimi mentioned about a Kenyan case study, which I'm aware of, and a Kano case study, which is very exciting to me right now. Reason, because I'm sitting in Abuja for a project and I think it's something we should look at. The reason why I mentioned this is because we should have participatory, complementary approach to deploying whatever projects, programs, or funds we have, such that when we see ourselves as wanting to achieve the same objectives, even if we have one or two people or stakeholders who do not see it as that, when majority of the stakeholders are in alignment on a certain focus of what to do with funds, it makes it go. And in terms of grouping according to needs, I agree with what Dr. Fumi said when he said that because, for example, in Nigeria, the North and the South would never be the same in terms of catching up with education inequality in the first place, not to talk of equity. The same thing is, I would also then go back to Tanzania. I will go back to Kenya. Don't let's go too far, such that we know that the people in Nairobi would never be able to see or appreciate education like those in Mombasa, or like those in, why? Because the needs in various regions vary. And so it is important that out of a national focus area for education, or bridging the gap in education inequality, it is important that each region, each area, each geopolitical zone, depending on how each group or country in Africa works, is able to identify what is urgent and important for their own educational space per time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ashaudu, for that wonderful thought. Dr. Jet Video, what is your take on this? Dr. Jet, are you still with us? It seems Dr. Jet is not with us any longer. Now, let's move to the other question I asked. I said, what roles can private sectors play? Okay, let's hear what Dr. Jeff have to say.
The issue around bridging educational gap in Nigeria and by extension in Africa, because Nigeria is a very significant part of the global south. So I was thinking, as a question came up, I was looking at it from the context, if we're looking at teacher and school supports. For teachers to be effective, they need supports. But beyond that, these teachers would also need to be placed in what I'll call a strong coaching peer group. This coaching peer group will help to build the capacity of teachers to be able to respond to the growing needs of education in Nigeria. And the truth about it is that we continue to look at teaching from the perspective of pedagogy alone. But it is very constructive to begin to also look at another aspect, because as people begin to grow, the kind of experiences that they have is deeper. So we must begin to look at the concept of pedagogy along with andragogy. Andragogy itself is the art and science of helping people to learn, more than just pedagogy, which is just teaching. So teachers must begin to learn how to use andragogical skills, pedagogical skills, and this strong coaching, peer support would help to build this capacity. And within the context of this, we're also looking at how teachers, the feedback, we begin to create a cycle of feedback where we can hear from the teachers, we can learn from them, and they can learn from their support groups. Another thing, because we're also looking at school supports, and students are an integral part of this school support system. And more than ever, we begin to hear things around safeguarding of students, of children within the school system. And this is where it becomes very important that there should be a synergy, a reporting flow where students can give us information about what may go wrong in the school system. And within the safeguarding framework, we must continue to think about how to include confidentiality and possibly SMS helpline, such that students are able to share their concerns within the school system. And it's very key, very, very important. There was once a time I ran a program in the school system, and it was for girls. And I was surprised that they had a lot to tell, but they did not know who to talk to. So if we have this kind of situation where we have strategically located within the school system confidential boxes, they're able to use it without victimization when it is anonymous. And another thing within the school system, teachers must begin to think about how to incorporate mother tongue into the way to teach. It's unfortunate that we just focus on the English language, which is not bad in itself because we will be operating in the global market. However, it is important that we begin to include this in the school system. And I think most governments are beginning to realize the need to do this. Lagos State government, for example, is looking in that direction, as well as have a number of radio programs that are promoting the mother tongue, podcast and all that. And of course, when students are able to access this, teachers are able to understand the need to teach and to transmit knowledge in the mother tongue, then we'll be able to enhance teacher and school systems such that at the end of the day, we're not just looking at it from one part of the context, but we can look at it in various contexts. I think that's.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jet, for that wonderful talk. You talk about the need for teachers to use new teaching skills and use support groups to enable them teach their children, their students effectively. You also talk about the need to create confidential boxes. This will enable children have access to talking to people privately without necessarily going out to see anybody. You also talk about the need to incorporate mother tongue into school system. Yes, this will go a long way in helping a lot of people gain insight into what is required of them as it has to do with the issue of education. Mr. Gbenga Ishola is also with us this evening. Mr. Gbenga Ishola, what is your take on this? Mr. Gbenga. Hello, Mr. Gbenga. Mr. Gbenga, are you still with us? Now, let's quickly take the next and final question. And this is talking about the roles private sectors can play beyond writing checks. Dr. Halimi, can you tell us other roles the private sectors can play apart from them just writing check to support education. Alimi. Alimi, are you still with us? Mr. Gabriel Olufumi, what is your take on this issue?
Sorry, please, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please, can you come again? Can you repeat that?
Okay, what I said was, what role can private sectors play beyond writing checks? You know, we need all hands to be on deck to support the education sector. So apart from the private sectors, apart from them just putting money into it, what are the things that they can do to improve the education in Africa?
Okay. Well, I never knew earlier while I was speaking that my network was bad. I'd mentioned something like that. See, in Nigeria now, the private sector are playing a critical role in closing in on the gaps. If you take a look around,
In a continent
the
rich
public
with potential and
there are so
promise.
many private schools in Nigeria, from private basic schools to secondary schools to universities. These are private initiatives to bridge in the gaps. Now, are the policies, are the Nigerian educational policy creating, allowing them as a stakeholder to play a major role to be very effective? That's one question. And when I say that, I mean, is government allowing them, giving them creating an enabling environment for them to thrive, to do what they should do, what they would like to do well? See, kids, let's emphasize, let's focus on foundational literacy, just like those speakers have said earlier. See, there are too many basic schools in Nigeria. Government needs to come to the consciousness that these kids that are attending private schools are their responsibilities. It is the failure of the state that has made too many private schools to come up, right? It is the failure of the state that are giving room to too many actors to establish private schools. So there should be a policy that is helping them, because they are putting their money there. The question is, are they getting profits? Are a number of them making profits? I'm not sure. So a lot of interventions that are focusing on public schools should be extended to them. So that will make them do better beyond the money. Do you understand? They should be accommodated in a lot of government interventions that are extended only to public schools. Now, government is saying public-private partnership. If you look at Pakistan, India, public-private partnership is the winning ways now. In the light of the growing population of kids of school age. So government needs to bring them to the meeting table and have a robust discussion with them and create a policy and put a policy that will encourage them to do better. Right? So all of this needs to come into play. For someone who has put down his money or our money, is because the person is passionate about what he's invested into. But is the environment conducive? Are the policies secure, protecting them? There are private funders now. There are organizations that are funding private education generally in Nigeria now. But government needs to do more. That's my point.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert, for that insight. Dr. Halimi, can you unmute your mic now? Dr. Alimi, you're still with us.
Can you hear? Yeah, can you hear me,
Yes.
please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think the network is playing a prank on me. Yeah. On the question you just asked, I think the private sector, of course, as part of the corporate social responsibility, have done a lot in education. And like the immediate speaker just mentioned, that their involvement in most of these interventions is a fallout of failure of government to live up to expectation in that regard. However, I stand to be corrected basically, but I think it's part of the corporate governance to add value to the environment where you're making your money from. And that's where the issue of corporate social responsibility comes in. The only area where I have challenge about that is that most of this funding come in as donations and a one-off thing. I was reading some time ago, and I came across I think African Development Bank's report that talked about I think the corporate bodies, businesses in Africa, that what they've contributed in donations to education is over, I think, $1.8 billion and no. This is huge, but it will leave very little impact when it's one-off, when it's not with a mindset of partnership. So personally, I feel the private sector should evolve from being mere donors to becoming development partners. Are we together, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they should evolve from being mere donors to becoming development partners and enablers of sustainable education ecosystem. Is it Dr. Ogidon or Mrs. Ogidon? Please forgive me. While she was responding to the initial question, she laid emphasis on quality of teachers and all. The private sectors, beyond the one-off grants that goes that just fizzle out just like that, I feel they can invest more in teachers' professional development, and this would in turn translate into adding value to the quality of teaching we have at our various schools. While I was in primary school, I'll give you a practical example. In primary 3, to be precise, and by the way, I attended a very public primary school. In primary 3, we had a teacher then, Miss Tinu, as she then was. She was a grade 2 teacher, but she was one of the best I've had over time. And what am I saying? It's because she's passionate about what she does and all. This is without intervention from maybe the government or private, what's it called, beyond her being paid. She is passionate about what she does. What we have mostly, the crop of teachers, I'm sorry to say this, the crop of teachers we have mostly at this period are accidental teachers. Those who go into teaching profession because there's no other thing to do. And I feel the private sector can come in with specialized training and funding to encourage the teaching profession and to encourage quality curriculum development that would in turn translate into improved educational achievement of our children and all. I hope I've answered that question. A little.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Alimi, for that wonderful insight. I'll now call on an educational consultant, Mrs. Modupe Ola, to tell us her take on this issue.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I just joined, so I wasn't following. I've just joined now.
We are talking about the role the private sector can play when it comes to the issue of educational development. Beyond them dropping checks, what are the things they can do to promote education in Africa?
Private sector.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess there's so much we can do. Like you said, beyond the paycheck or the funding, there are many things we can advocate for. There are many things that we can go and legislate for. Of course, like the last speaker just said, the teachers and the crop of teachers that we have or that are being produced now, sadly, are an example of exactly what the system that we have in place is. You can't give what you don't have. And based on the kind of things happening in schools and educational systems or university systems and all of that, what you see is what they've produced, unfortunately. So private sector, there's so much we can do. We can advocate, we can fund teaching programs, teaching educational programs or activities. We can train teachers privately. I work with an NGO that does that. We train teachers for free. We do work with children in schools in different localities, especially the underprivileged. We go in there, we ask what their needs are, we find out what the needs are, and we provide it at no cost to them, especially low-income schools. So yes, a lot of people, there's so much to do. There's so many schools. Every area of Lagos State, for instance, we're going to take that, has schools, from the 5,000 term school to the 1 million, 2 million school. So you can decide if the school needs help in this area to provide the things that they need, from teaching materials to training teachers, to helping to do interviews for teachers so that the right crop of teachers are employed. And so there's so much to do beyond just throwing the money. If you're interested in what we're producing, and we better be, if we don't want to run into a serious problem very soon in the country, that we already have, but can get worse if we don't improve the system. So there is a lot to do. Collaborations with the government, collaborations with NGOs, collaborations with one another in order to do the right thing. I guess that's what I'll say for now.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Modupe Ola, for that wonderful insight. We want to say a big thank you to our panelists. We will now take a few questions from our audience. Please type your questions in the chat or the question and answer box, and I will direct them to our speakers. We have a question, and it seems this one goes to Mrs. Ashaolu. The question says, is equity in this aspect of achieving a unanimous improvement of education, considering all differences in ethnicity, economic, and social cadre, really achievable in reality?
Thank you so very much, Hawao, and thank you also to the person who asked that question. Considering the current reality that we have, it is a daunting task, but it is achievable, and it is not going to be achieved overnight. I'll give an example as to, and it starts from advocacy. What I mean by advocacy is that those of us who are consultants, those of us who are in the field implementing, those of us who are making policies can be able to advocate to policyholders and be a bridge between that and the implementers or those who implement these projects, these programs, or these interventions, to let them see it is all right for the federal government, for example, or the government of the to see or have a certain policy regarding education. Now, when there is advocacy to say, I'm bringing your strong reasons now to say that this, not just in talks, in videos, in pictures, in realities, now technology allows those who are in places of authority to be able to see what's happening in some other places, to say that, yes, in line with this policy that we have to, for example, the federal government, we notice that in this geopolitical zone or in this local government, in this geopolitical zone where maybe, for example, I am a representative or I'm a senator or I'm just a good citizen of my community, right? We can do advocacy, not necessarily until we're elected to Senate or a member of the House of Representatives. Now we can use our social media as well. Now we call attention to various issues and things now, and then we can say that in this place, we think that this policy in terms of implementation could be done in this way, in that way, to be able to achieve the same thing. Now, what we need to see is also a mindset shift in line with the current realities, more than ever before. The realities that seem far into those corners of different places across Africa and in Nigeria are now coming to fore, courtesy of globalization via technology. And so it is achievable. And when we start putting those priorities in place, we can then group our interventions in order to ensure that they can meet the needs of these people. I gave one case study, and I think one of our dear panelists also gave a case study in Kano. I gave one Lagos, another person gave in Nairobi. And that is the case of how it should be, such that in various communities, underserved communities, low-income communities, whatever English, but we understand what it is that we mean, that education, delivering equitable or achievable or impactful education does not have to be deployed or cannot be achieved by being deploying it in one single way. And this is why we have gotten to where we are today. We have absolutely fantastic people who will contribute not just to enhance the realities, either financial or social realities of their of themselves, but also for their families, the communities where they reside in, and the country, just by learning a skill as a build on, or by having or belonging to a group to say, we are not learning a skill. We just have disabilities in terms of hearing or sight, and we can be able to have a group whose needs are met in that capacity to ensure equity to a good extent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Before we wrap up the webinar, let's go on another break.
In a continent rich with potential and promise, education is the key to unlocking Africa's future. Welcome to the New Education Standard Award, NISA Africa, Nigeria 2025. Together, we celebrate the champions of education and inspire excellence across the continent. From bustling cities to serene villages, the heartbeat of Africa resonates through education. Our signature song is a call to action, a melody of hope, unity, and progress. Let it inspire you to join the movement for educational excellence. Spearheaded by the Santos Creations Educational Foundation, NESA Africa recognizes individuals, organizations, and institutions that are transforming the face of education. Together, we're shaping a brighter future for Africa. Celebrating outstanding contributions to education, NESA Africa Awards feature categories like Overall Best NGO Contribution, Best EduTech Organization, and many more. Excellence deserves recognition, and you can be part of this journey. Nominate outstanding contributors to education. Shine a light on their achievements by submitting nominations today. Simply scan the QR code to access the nomination portal. Sponsorship and partnership opportunities.
NESA Africa is committed to awarding outstanding individuals who are supporting the development of education in Africa. As we wrap up, a few key takeaways stand out, and it is important for us to know that we must prioritize inclusive education policies that reach rural and undeserved children. It is also important for us to collaborate across government, NGOs, and private sector. And it is not all about collaboration. It is also important for private sectors too and non-government organizations to work on training and retraining of teachers to help improve the educational sector. We should also note that digital innovation can be a powerful equalizer, but only if access is equitable. On behalf of Santos Creation Educational Foundation and NESA Africa with Sakefa Lagos, I sincerely thank our keynote speakers, panelists, and all participants for joining us this evening. I'm Hawa Halim Makama, your moderator. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for being part of EduAid Africa. Your replay
Thank you, Madam Moderator. You did an amazing
and certificate
job.
are on the way. Tomorrow, download the research note, make a pledge, join a chapter, or sponsor a category. Next week, EdTech for Rural Learning, offline first content, solar labs, and teacher coaching that works. Funding education through partnerships, empowering education.
Not that that miracle will do that. That is what is happening to you. So I think not now it's going down. It has gone down. And I want to tell you that you should understand it that while